Hello, welcome to Conversations with Awakened Folks Living Regular Lives. This is the roundtable version. My name is Kundan Chabra, and I have two guests here today, Sayed Papik
Hi.
and Alex Gurovich.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
having us.
All right, so I will start with asking Alex, describe your first awakening experience.
Okay, so I know that you told me actually in advance that you would be asking me that question, my first awakening experience. And it's not that I didn't think about it, because I did. Like, I really racked my brain to think about what my first awakening experience was. It's just, I actually don't remember. So
Okay.
is it all right if instead I told you what I kind of consider to be maybe like my most important awakening
Okay, yeah,
experience?
that works. All your most recent.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this
yeah.
feels like my most important and one of my most recent, so
Okay,
I'll tell you
yeah.
about that. Um, and for me, it's always like they're not usually huge. They're always just kind of like these little insights that sort of
Mhm.
make the world feel a little bit clearer.
Right.
So I think probably lately what has contributed to that the most was realizing that nobody actually cares if I'm awakened. Like there's
Uh-huh.
that was big for me, realizing that there's actually no trophy or
Mhm.
award if I'm awakened. Like actually realizing that everybody who's on this path,
Mhm.
whether it's the path of awakening or whether it's a more religious thing or self-development or whatever you want to call it, actually they don't care if I'm awakened. They care what they're experiencing. They
Mhm.
care what they're going through, and if they're awakened, if they're doing it
Mhm.
right.
Right.
And at first that wasn't really a big deal for me, but as that sort of sank in,
Mhm.
it took all the pressure off.
Mm.
Because for a long time, this has been kind of like, there was a big period in my life where I was really serious about
Mhm.
this pursuit. And it's not that I'm not serious now, it's just that it's all right if it
Mhm.
doesn't always go according to plan. If it's all right if it doesn't always feel totally clear, totally spiritual, whatever. Like
Mhm.
sometimes, it's okay if for the most part, I feel awakened, I feel good, I feel clear,
Mhm.
but that guy really pisses me off
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever it is.
uh-huh.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter if I get it right all the time,
Mhm.
part of the time. All it really matters is to me.
Mhm.
Other people who are watching this or who are going through their own thing,
Mhm.
they don't care if I'm awakened, and you know in the same way people don't really care if you're awakened. It's your own sort of personal journey, and if you trip or if you're confused from time to time, it's okay, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I like that. Like one of my favorite things about you, especially in our previous conversations, is this whole idea that we don't have to be conventionally spiritual or fit into other people's idea of spirituality. That it's more important to be just honest with ourselves and be okay with whatever's going on. Like, let's start there.
Right.
Right.
I definitely feel that, and I get that from
Mhm.
you too. When
Mhm.
I see you work with people, and
Mhm.
even when we're speaking together,
Mhm.
um, I can see that you do have high standards for yourself,
Mhm.
and this is very important to you. But at the same time, you you know how to not pressure people
Right.
or set the bar too high for them.
Mhm.
You realize that everybody's just kind of doing the best you can, and you do a good job of accommodating people wherever they are.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Sayad, how do you relate to that, to what we've been talking about so far?
Yeah, I think. Hi, Alex.
Hello, Sayal. How
Good
are
to
you?
good to see you
Good to
today.
see you.
Hi, Kundan.
Hi.
Um, do people care not whether or not somebody else is awakened? I think knowing somebody's path, how they got awakened, is can be very intriguing to the ego. hey, how did you get there? Don't let me. Don't show me how. How was your road? Because that relates to me, the listener. Then, if I see that you did it, and you tell me how you did it, well then, I can do that too. There was a thing where somebody did the 1 minute mile, right? Was it like that? And nobody had done it before, and when the first person did it, all of a sudden it was like everybody just started doing it. Oh, now I think I can do it. Oh, you got this. You got it. Oh, how did you do that? I want that too. So there's definitely something mesmerizing about that, and the more that we share our, I guess we call it quote unquote achievements, better terminology is the more that we share where we are, then and how we got there. I think that's there's a connection there that, and for anybody that wants to, they can get there too. They can learn more and they can get there too.
Right, I can relate to that too, because this very talk, this video shoot that we're doing itself is inspired by that idea. In fact, it all started when I read a book called Epiphanies, which is basically a collection of awakening stories. And every time I read that book, I would kind of feel a third presence in the room. I would feel more peaceful. I would kind of have an awakening experience myself. And when I started talking with people, especially one of my friends here, Rich, whenever I hear his stories, I would certainly like feel that third presence as well. And that inspired me to start recording and documenting these experiences, so that, I mean, if it's possible to have an awakening just by hearing an awakening story, that's pretty amazing. And this conversation is in fact targeted towards people who are just on the verge of awakening and just need a little nudge. But of course, it's also important to be real and not to put too much pressure on ourselves. Like, that's true too. It's like all of it makes sense. So along those lines, my next question, which right now would be to Alex, how are you living your daily life? Like, how do you, for example, respond to a trigger? And how do you apply your awakening experiences into those experiences?
That has changed for me a lot, I would say, in the past year. Because up until recently, I just kind of saw consciousness as this sort of general thing, like this sort of general state that I want to be in as much as I can. And sometimes I would feel bad because, I'm not feeling really conscious right now because I'm getting triggered or whatever, but I'm not really seeing consciousness that way anymore. I mean, I know that there is this general state of consciousness, awakeness, whatever you want to call it, but for me, recently, it's not so much about whether I feel like I'm in the conscious state. Rather, it's more about, am I conscious of the trigger? Am I conscious of the things that are going on inside me? And am I conscious of why I'm doing the things, thinking, saying the things I'm doing? And what I've been finding is that usually there are conflicting pieces. There's one part of me maybe that wants to achieve my goals, or really be successful at this business or whatever it is, and then maybe there's another part of me that feels like, oh, I don't deserve it. And I think before, I would feel bad because, oh, I'm supposed to be on this, spiritual path or whatever, I shouldn't be feeling these things. But I don't look at it that way anymore. I look at that as the moment that decides whether or not I'm going to be conscious, if I'm willing to be conscious of those conflicting pieces?
Mm-hmm.
Am I willing to really acknowledge that, yes, part of me wants this, another
Mhm.
part of me doesn't, or is afraid, or is ashamed, or feels like I
Mhm.
don't deserve it? And by becoming conscious of
Mm-hmm.
those various things, those pieces that seem to be in conflict, I find that the general feeling of consciousness, like the consciousness with a big C, it
Mhm.
feels like it's going up.
Yeah, and I can relate to that too. It's, in fact, that reminds me of one of my favorite questions that you keep asking people, including me. Do you feel wrong for feeling that way? And I've applied this in both my clients and in some of my friends. Like, for example, I had a friend who posted something that was like, she seems to be in crisis and she said she was feeling lonely. And it's that I just asked her, do you feel wrong for it? And what if you're not wrong? What if it's just feedback? What if you just experience it fully? And just by helping her feel it fully and be grateful for that, she started feeling a shift, like she started feeling better. And it helped her get through that night. Like, and that's how important it is to like not have these spiritual like armor or like, on these like putting on spiritual airs about like perfection.
I definitely can relate to that,
Mhm.
to both sides of it, because as I said, for me, for a long time, it was this feeling of, trying to do the best I can with this whole consciousness awakening thing, and feeling bad
Mhm.
when I would get it wrong.
Mhm.
And now, yeah, like I said, especially this past year, I think that's shifted for me, and I now really accept the fact that there is no getting it wrong.
Mhm.
But those moments when I'm able to be fully conscious of those different things that are going on inside me, the part of me that wants it, the part of me that maybe is afraid or, ashamed, feels like I don't deserve it, whatever, I do know that that's one of the moments that I'm getting it right,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And that's really how it feels like to me. Like, I don't feel like there is a wrong, but there are moments when I'm getting it right.
Right.
And I also think that it's easy to disagree
Mhm.
with how somebody approaches their
Mhm.
path,
Mhm.
or to feel like you meet a lot of people doing this, and not everybody really approaches it the same way,
Mhm.
and not everybody is willing to really ask the question, what am I avoiding? What am I fooling myself about?
Mhm.
But that's not because they're chickens, and it's not because they suck and we don't, or whatever. That's not it. It's
Mhm.
really, when you stop and look at it, what it is, what's going on there is that if somebody is willing to ask the question, how am I fooling myself? How am I avoiding what's going on inside me? The reason they're willing to ask that is because they have a solid strategy for handling the answers that come up.
Mhm.
If the pain is too great, then they're not going to ask those questions.
Mhm.
And really, I think that's a shifting point. That's the
Mhm.
shifting point that I've seen with people who've made a big leap when it comes to consciousness, is they've found a way to handle their emotional reactions to that question or questions like it.
Mhm.
Because until you have a solid way of doing it, until you have a solid way of asking, what am I really afraid of? How am I really fooling myself?
Mhm.
What am I really ashamed of? And then knowing how to handle that feeling that comes up,
Mhm.
it's going to be too hard,
Mhm.
and it's not self-sustaining. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally get that. Yeah. And that's a nice segue to say out a question, because you seem to be almost like a pioneer when it comes to really responding to your own emotional reactions and like really diving into your emotions and things like that. So what's your process behind all that?
Process behind diving into my
How do you
emotions
respond to your emotional reactions?
when something comes up, let's
When
say.
something comes up, or if there's a trigger, or somebody makes you angry, or
Yeah, which happens a lot. Well, it happened this morning actually. Before I came here, just something happened, and I really got triggered, and unfortunately, there was no school called Emotions 101. There was no class called Emotions 101,
Right.
and there's so much that we don't know out there than what we do know. So there's so many more feelings and combinations of feelings and things that's going on in, let's say, in our stomach and our abdominal area or our body than what the mind can make sense of.
Yeah.
So what I do is every time I'm feeling something, as much as I can, I take time out. Let's say go to a room or take time out and just feel exactly what's going on without judging it, without thinking I'm supposed to feel this way, without thinking I'm not supposed to feel this bad stuff, I'm supposed to feel this good stuff. Bad and good is what we've learned in this culture. What we're moving towards eventually is another culture where all feelings are neither bad or good, they're just as they should be. Reacting on those feelings is something entirely different. That's choice, and that's what we should do in our highest good. But as far as feeling everything, why is there a law? Why does it have a negative connotation of feeling bad? Oh, no, you shouldn't feel bad. So I dive into the bad as if it's a swimming pool. If I try to avoid the swimming pool, I mean, it stays, this feeling then stays with me until I look at it, until I dive into it. And again, I do this when I have time. The more time I have, the more I dive into it. And let's say if I have a few hours to kill and something's really bothering me, something is really like getting on my nerves, I could go in my room, let's say, I could go lay down on my bed or lay down on my floor and say, okay, what am I really feeling? And just feel it. Because our words are so limited to the vastness of what we can feel and to the vastness of what's actually out there. So I dive into it like a swimming pool, and I don't call it any names. I'm like, wow, this feels like a sensation. Let me just breathe into it and allow it to travel all throughout my body. Emotion, energy in motion. Move the energy in motion all over your body. When I don't do that, when I ignore it or not allow it to fully express itself, it gets stuck in one place or another in my body. Let's say if I'm feeling anger and I don't want to fully acknowledge the anger, well, then that anger comes out when I talk to people. It comes out in other ways through my body language and through my tone as passive aggressive. Same thing with all other emotions and feelings. The ones that we do have a name for and the vast ones that we don't have names for. I take as much time as I can to just feel everything. And by the way, when I do dive into this, whatever it's called, a feeling, bad, good, sadness, say depression, anger, fear, guilt, wow, when I dive fully into it, it's like my mind is gone and I'm just fully engrossed in this feeling. And sometimes when I give myself hours, I don't know if I'm going to come out of it. I'm not aware of the time. I don't know how I'm going to come out of it. There's no attachment at the end, meaning there's no attachment at the end saying, okay, I'm going to feel this way. I'm going to be like Superman when I come out of it. There is none of that. There is only breathing, feeling this, the emotion, whatever it is, fully, allowing it without judging, without naming it, and allowing it to go fully through my body. And then on its own, I don't expect it to do this, but on its own, it moves along. The energy moves along. The emotion moves along. And then what's left is me feeling completely relieved. What remains is me, the true me, the essence of me, and I'm allowed to express my true self so much more. Yeah, I mean, if I can give one advice to anybody about emotions, wow, there's nothing to be afraid of. Take some time out, dive into it fully, write down whatever you're feeling, write down whatever you're thinking. Don't judge them. Our own worst enemy is our judgments about ourselves. I mean, my God, I think that's might be actually the definition of suffering. It's one thing having an emotion wanting to get out. It's another thing of saying no, don't.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to feel that. We're not supposed to do that. And it's almost like now we have to be the opposite in order almost to survive, because nowadays emotions are coming up so much that they're going to rule our lives unless we look at them, because it's a Tasmanian devil inside wanting to just like move, wanting to tug on your shoulder saying, hey, look at, or wanting to be looked at, like it's tugging on your shoulder, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, or it's just wanting to move. And if we don't allow it, if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't look at it without saying you're bad, without saying you shouldn't be here, the more we do that, the more we look at it, the more free we are.
Wow.
I could keep talking for another 8 hours, but
And often you do.
I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, totally. That was awesome. Like,
And where's the proof? Like, where's the actual proof that I'm wrong for feeling this way?
exactly. That's
Like,
no proof.
Yeah, like where is the evidence? And if there's no evidence, like if I can't, like cite a scientific study, or if God himself doesn't say, yeah, you should not have felt that way, am I forgiven for feeling the way I do? Am I forgiven for suffering, for being angry, for being scared, for being hurt? I didn't exactly choose to feel that way. I mean, some people will say, oh yeah, you choose everything, but the reality is, when you're in pain, you don't want to be in pain.
Yeah.
Are you forgiven? I say yes. I say that it's all right, forgive yourself.
Can I ask you a question of where's the proof? Can I answer your question of where's the proof of it being wrong?
Please do, Sayad.
Thank you. The proof of it being wrong? You're right. There is no proof. The only idea of this emotion being wrong is the idea that we were taught in this culture. And that's slowly, or maybe even rapidly, moving away now. I want to emphasize the word culture. Let's take a step back a second. How many cultures was there before America, or before whatever country you're viewing this from? How many cultures were there before you? How many cultures were there after you? Instead of looking at the rules and the laws of the culture, look at the rules and the laws. Well, how do you feel? Who are you? This is not a bad feeling. There may be very well cultures out there that say, how are you feeling today, little Johnny or little Sarah? I feel like crap. Well, that's awesome. That is incredible. Yes. Well, do you need some time alone? Do you need some time to fully dive into that? Another minute, and then I'll be fine. Okay, great. Imagine if I had parents like that. Imagine how expressive their children would be when they grow up. Imagine what kind of lives that they would live imagine what kind of love, what kind of true selves they'd be allowed to experience. It's like an inhibited emotion, a feeling that we keep stuck down. It's like a big wall between us and everything around us. No, I don't want to do this because I might feel this. No, I don't want to approach this person because I might get rejected or feel this, and that might bring up a feeling that I don't want to feel, I don't want to experience, I don't want to allow it through my body. imagine if we lived in a world where we approached someone and whatever feeling it is, it's not right or wrong, it just is. Oh, okay, you're rejecting me. Oh, okay, great. That's awesome. Well, I love you too. and we move on to the next thing that we want to do. Imagine if we live in that culture.
That beautiful, beautiful. And to kind of go along with that, knowing that, so much of what we experience, our emotional reactions, come from other people, come from our relationships, our connections to other people. And especially when it comes to things like, rejection, shame, that's all stuff that, that's our social selves. And one of the other big realizations that I think helped me the most was really getting that when people are reacting to me, they're not really reacting to me. Nobody has actually ever reacted to me. Like this experience that I'm having, it's the same for everybody else. Like on the surface, it looks like I'm talking to you and I'm reacting to you, but actually I'm always only reacting to what's going on in my head. And
Your own filters,
to my own filters, like how I perceive you. If it wasn't that, then everybody would have exactly the same opinion of Kundan, of Sayad, of me. But that's not how it is. People will agree that, oh yeah, Kundan's a really great guy, he's got a big heart or whatever, but in general, that's one thing. Everybody, though, the way they perceive you is different, and you cause them to think different things, you cause them to react emotionally in different ways, and that's what it is for everybody. Everybody's living in their own world, reacting to their own triggers. And when they're saying no to you, Alex, no, I reject you, I would, rather be with somebody else, I'd rather talk to somebody else, whatever, that's them. Maybe I should shower more or whatever it is, but they are reacting to what's going on in their own little worlds. And when you really get that, and you really stop taking it personally, and just have kind of like a little bit of compassion and empathy for the fact that everybody's just sort of doing the best they can, trying to get what they want out of this world, trying to avoid their own pain, their own fear, then it kind of makes those interactions a lot easier.
I agree, yeah. It's that we delete, distort, and generalize reality. In fact, to the point that sometimes we don't even see what's right in front of us. Like, I once went to a seminar where they did an experiment where they had all of us, they showed us a video of two basketball teams playing basketball, the black team, the white team, and they asked us to count the number of passes between the teams. And we all did, like some people did, so that's 17, 13, 14, 15, right? And then they asked us, oh, so who saw the big black gorilla? And nobody saw it. So they showed it to us again, and right in the middle of the screen was a big black gorilla that walked right in front and actually even pumped his chest. And nobody saw it because we were focused on the passes. So you're totally right, it's about the filters. Right?
I saw that video recently. The one with the big black gorilla, the basketball players. It blew my mind because, and I remember this clearly. In that video, you're told the first time, just look at this is spoiler alert, but you're told, just look at the people with the white shirts passing the basketball. And the second time through watching that video, it blew my mind that I missed a big black gorilla walking right through the middle of the screen, beating his chest. It was by far the most obvious thing, and then walking off the screen. I saw firsthand that this really obvious thing I was completely blind to because I was too busy paying attention to other things. And that's really how it is all the time with everything.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, I do a simpler version of this, of that experiment in some of my classes where I just have people count the number of red objects in the room, and then I ask them, so tell me the number of blue objects, and nobody sees it. So my next question is towards Sean, because I understand you had an awakening experience recently, your third awakening, this very week. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, Monday night I had an awakening. I was going through a horrific time, and it was emotions, and it was I mean, wow. There's so many emotions than sadness, fear, guilt. I mean, there's like, wow. I can't even imagine what I was feeling. My mind couldn't comprehend it, and I was experiencing it for hours, and it was pretty intense to the point where I said, I don't know if this goes on for another couple of days. I don't know if I'd be able to fake it in the real world and pretend that everything's okay. I don't think I can go on like this. I'd have to, if this goes on for another couple of days, I'd have to get some help. Knock on maybe wear like a jacket and a straight jacket and just be in a room. That's how I felt. It was that bad. I mean, it's amazing to know that it was that bad, but it was that bad. And I mean, I laid down. I know some powerful exercise, focus on my breathing, which takes away from the thought and just gets you in your body. It worked very slightly. It didn't work much. Looking at my thoughts, another powerful technique, which worked very well in the past, didn't really work that much this time at all. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no hope. And I just lay there in just surrendering to it. And that's probably a key word, surrender to it. Just allow it to be whatever it is and not control it and not fight it. So I just lay there surrendering to it. And then I said, you know what, this is what's happening to me. Because I was thinking about something that happened in the past that was pretty horrific. And I'm like, what's happening right now, like the way that I'm feeling and my thoughts and everything that's going on is a story. That's when everything got lighter. And I started to feel so much better. And I'm like, oh, cool, I don't need to check myself in the hospital anymore. And I could go about my day, but I didn't stop there. I was feeling better. And the way that I got better is I said, this is a story. So then I said to myself, the me feeling better, this thinking that I'm better and me actually experiencing everything better, that's also a story. And then that moment, everything just shifted. It's like the story was here and I went, who? And the story was right in front of me instead of me being in the story. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. It went from the most horrific experience of my life to the most amazing experience of my life. Because I saw it for what it was, a story. Not that it's insignificant. You don't have to throw it away or do something new. Well, the key is do something new. For the first time in my life, I actually saw myself that I could do anything that I want, go anywhere that I want, and say anything. Not that you could go to the next door neighbor or knock on their door. I could literally, if I want, I could go to Australia. If I want, I could change anything. I could start another company. I could start a movement if I want, or I could do nothing and perfectly be still and be okay and vibrate doing nothing at all. It was, it's like the world was in front of me and I could change myself in it any way that I see fit. And it was pretty amazing. And that went on for most of the night, that feeling. And every time I saw myself getting out of that feeling, like going back into that feeling, going back into the sleep state, like sleepwalking, which is what I usually do sometimes, go by unconscious behavior, go by behavior that I've learned since childhood, like the things that I say, the things that I do. Tonight was way different. Tonight was doing what experiencing everything for what it was. Tonight I was born again. Every split second that went by, every second was brand new. Versus, oh, this is the same old, this is the same old, this is the same old. Even if I went to a familiar place, it was brand new. The sky was unbelievable. The people that I dealt with, I connected way more, and every step that I took was vibrating. And every time I saw myself pulling out of that and going back to sleepwalking, then I just checked in with myself and said, no, this is a story too. And then everything went, whoop, consciousness just went outside the picture instead of inside the picture. And then I experienced it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then since then it faded a little bit, but not completely. So that was my last awakening.
That's awesome.
The intensity of it sounds like you're saying the intensity of it faded,
Right.
but there is that kind of realization in the background that it's all story. That
Right.
realization hasn't gone away.
Exactly.
Amazing. That's
It-
great.
Exactly. There's still a little magic nugget that remains. I mean, the full intensity, a lot of it is gone, but there's a little magic. Not all of it, by the way. Some intensity is still there. Like, some intensity is still there, knowing that I could really, the feeling of knowing that I could do so much more is still there, and the feeling of knowing that, hey, there's something more out there than what this brain thinks is really out there. in fact, this brain also is, the mind also is just another story. It's another made up story, and there's a whole vastness out there.
Mm-hmm. By the way, that's a really great technique, asking is this a story, because this is the second time you told the story, and every time you mention the story, and especially that word, that phrase, is this a story? For me, how it impacts me is every time you ask that question in the room, in the space, like, I feel myself like going into kind of a witness state, more present, but also like asking myself, is this Kundan experiencing you, or is this experience itself experiencing Kundan and experiencing you via Kundan? And what if consciousness is experience itself, like awareness itself? It really like makes me wonder. So the holidays are coming up. So I'm gonna start with Alex, and then I'll be asking you too. How do you deal with family in the holidays?
Okay, so family, huh? 5 minutes. Okay, family is something that I've really started to look forward to, especially lately. Not because it's rosy all the time, not because it's just, like awesome, happy rainbows. That's not why. But it definitely has gotten easier for me. That's my family. That's where if I'm going to get triggered, if I'm going to get frustrated about something, if I'm going to struggle with something, it's probably going to happen around family. Like, those things are deep. They've been around for a long time. And the reason I've started to look forward to it is because when I go to my parents or to my uncles or, whoever it is that I'm visiting around Christmas, Thanksgiving, there are things that are going to get triggered that I would not know about if I didn't go. It doesn't make it less hard. It's not like a huge consolation at the moment that it's happening that, oh yeah, well, I wouldn't have known about this. But, it's still, painful or frustrating or whatever it is. But the reality is, if you're on this path and you really sincerely want to know the answer to the question, what am I avoiding? How am I fooling myself? What patterns am I running that I'm blind to? You don't get those answers without being around family in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, that only comes up around family. And
Yeah, many opportunities for healing and dissolving your old patterns.
for dissolving them, for seeing them
for
in the
seeing
first
them.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, it doesn't make it easier necessarily at the time, but really, if you are serious about this path, if you are authentically looking for the answers to those questions, you get those answers when you're around your family. And that actually, for me, I know that at the time it doesn't make it easier, but for me, it is a consolation. I feel good about that. I feel good knowing that I'm going and I'm connecting with them. And if things come up, I'm going to look at them, like I'm going to really honestly look at them. And I guess that's the answer to the question that you originally asked. How do I deal with it? I go and I experience whatever it is that I'm going to experience. I feel the whatever it is, the happiness, the camaraderie, the guilt, whatever it is that it's going to be. And I'm honest with myself about what it is that I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you?
Family, wow, yeah. I mean, I'm glad that my parents are alive still, and they're still alive because I love them and I want to see them, and they're also still alive because there's something that I need to learn. Also, the reason why family can trigger us so much, the reason why family can push this button that's only they can push, is that they installed the button there.
Yeah.
So while they push the button, if we can get through that, you will be enlightened. There's no question about it. There will be no more buttons for you to push. And so the question is, how do you do that? I was just there for Thanksgiving, and I make sure I only go when I'm like super ready to get my buttons pushed, and I don't go there frequently. and I know exactly what's going to happen, and I go there ready and prepared, and to see how much I can learn. Every button that they push is a feeling, is an opportunity. Everything that happens, it's an opportunity for you to experience this. Allow your energy to rise. It's kind of like a sensation from your hip area all the way up to your forehead. Allow your energy to rise and just see what you can get from the learning. And as far as what you say out, allow the higher self, allow the good of all to come out verbally or to come out through your actions, whether it's go to your room, whether it's leave the place, whether it's say a compliment, whether it's say how you feel. Hey, I don't like it that you did that. One time one of my parents said something to me in Thanksgiving, and I was just completely honest, and I said, I don't like that you did that, because I was trained from childhood not to question. I was trained from childhood not to speak, and so obviously that carries on from adulthood, and then you might not be allowed to speak to other people then. So she said something to me, and I didn't like it, and then I voiced what I didn't attack her. I just said, that didn't make me feel good, what you said. I felt this as a result of that comment. And that was one of the most therapeutic things that ever happened. So visiting family can be a complete therapy. It can be amazing. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was about to finish anyway.
One last thing, so it is an opportunity. Just allow. It's a gift. It's a gift to allow you to see yourself. What's one famous Buddhist phrase, or famous phrase is "Know thyself." What your parents and the buttons that they push is an opportunity. It can be painful. It's still a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful gift to know thyself and experience it, and then handle it again, in your highest way possible. Write it down, express how you're feeling, go for a walk, take some time out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thank you. This was great.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
was awesome. Yeah. So this has been Conversations with Awakened Folks Living Regular Lives. Thank you for being here and watching this video.